It's Fun Fact Friday, a segment where we talk about artificial eyes and stuff that impacts our patients. Today, we are talking about how we know it's time to replace our artificial eye. Early on in this series, this Fun Fact Friday series, we talked about how long an artificial eye tends to last, and that's about a 5 to 7 year window. However, that can be totally different for each individual patient, depending upon how much their body has changed since we first made that prosthesis. So, I'm Hillary, board certified ocularist, and let's get into it. After we wrap up a prosthesis, you're gonna come back and sit right here in my chair once a year to have that artificial eye cleaned. And when we do that, we go over lots of questions about the status of your prosthesis. And the biggest one is, what's your mattering like? Do you have a lot of eye boogies? That tells me, especially if you have a lot of it and it stays consistent throughout the day, that tells me that we just have some space going on back behind the prosthesis that we're not filling and accommodating for as we had, which makes sense because the prosthesis is one fixed hard piece of plastic here, like this guy. Nice and hard, isn't gonna grow or change, but the body does even after surgery. Even as we get older, we think kids are the only ones that grow and change, but adults do it too. So we're gonna take a peek at this prosthesis while it's in and see how it's looking. Is the upper lid dropping down a little bit? Is it tilting up, out, inward, downward? Make notes of all of those things at our yearly appointment. One thing we'll also do to check this is see where that little pinpoint of light is bouncing off on the iris itself. You can see on me, the pinpoint of light bounces off at the same point off of both iris, or the pupil, I guess you should say. And we use that as a diagnostic tool to see then in a year how things are doing. If that reflex is shifting and moving, then we know that the prosthesis isn't fitting like it had. Also, as the patient is looking around with their prosthesis, do we have any gaps on either the nasal corner or the temporal corner, or does it pop or click as they look around? Maybe we're pulling in a little bit of air as we look one way, and then when we look the other way, it pushes the air out. Also tells me we've got some space that we need to fill. So between that 5 to 7 year rule of thumb with a prosthesis, all of those little components adding up, mattering, popping and clicking, maybe some changes in how the prosthesis is just generally looking, and also some color changes, because that is going to happen because our eyes constantly are changing. The environment plays a factor as far as how the cast of all that clear tissue over the top, throws color onto the iris. So we have to make sure that we keep up with that as well. So 5 to 7 years is the rule of thumb, but some patients change quicker and some patients change a little bit slower over time. So all things that come together and tell me that, hey, it's time to do a new prosthesis for you, and we usually can get an increase or a decrease in our mattering, increase in comfort, and generally just tune you up a little bit. So that is today's Fun Fact Friday on when we know as ocularists it's time to replace that artificial eye. We'll see you next week.